Your brain already burned through 20% of today's energy, and you haven't done anything anyone would call work. Strange part, the calmest person in the room is usually the one paying for it the most. The tone of a coworker's email caught your attention before you knew why. Then someone's shoulders dropped the moment you walked into the room. None of it was on your calendar, and none of it took 5 minutes. But by 6 p.m., you're wiped out, and you can't always say exactly why. People tell you to just relax, as if the noticing has an off switch. It doesn't. Today we're proving, with real numbers, exactly what that costs you. Earlier in this series, we covered why your attentional filter runs wider than most people's: higher working memory capacity, a leakier sensory filter, background scanning that never fully switches off. That explains why you catch things. The exhaustion is a different question, and today we're answering it. A wider filter isn't free. It runs on the organ that's already the most expensive one in your body. Your brain is about 2% of your total body weight. It burns roughly 20% of your entire body's energy at rest, doing nothing you'd even call work. Gram for gram, that's 10 times more than almost any other tissue you have. Neurons don't get breaks. They fire, reset, fire again, thousands of times a second, and every cycle gets paid for in glucose and oxygen. Most of that cost isn't from the dramatic thoughts, it's the boring background work, keeping neurons ready to fire, holding the resting electrical charge across billions of cells. Neuroscientist Marcus Raichle spent years mapping exactly where that resting energy goes, and what he found changed how we think about the brain at rest. It doesn't go quiet. A huge share goes to a network that gets louder the moment you stop focusing on a task. It's called the default mode network. Raichle identified it in 2001, and the discovery surprised the field. Everyone assumed the brain idles when you're not actively doing something. It switches tasks instead. The default mode network handles self-referential thought. It replays conversations, simulates what might happen next, compares what just happened to what happened before. Quick question, what were you thinking about 10 seconds before this video started? Not the video itself, the thing underneath it. Most people can't answer that. You probably can, instantly. In most people, this network dims the moment something in the outside world demands real attention. In a highly perceptive brain, it keeps running underneath whatever you're doing, because the salience network next door keeps flagging incoming detail as worth a second look. That's the same salience network we talked about earlier, the one that marks background stimuli as important rather than filtering them out. Here's what actually explains the tiredness. Every flagged item still has to get processed by the default mode network, filed, compared, replayed, on top of whatever you're actually doing. Most people's minds genuinely rest between tasks. Yours runs a second job the whole time. It reviews today's meeting while you're supposed to be watching a show. It replays what your friend said while you're trying to fall asleep. You didn't pick that up as a habit. The network is doing exactly what it's built to do, just at a higher volume than most people's ever reaches. A Harvard study measured this from the outside. In 2010, psychologists Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert tracked thousands of people through the day, asking at random moments what they were doing and how happy they felt. Nearly half the time, people's minds had wandered from whatever they were actually doing. A wandering mind measured as a less happy mind in almost every case, even when the wandering was about something pleasant. Their paper had a blunt title: A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind. A brain running its default mode network at full volume pays an emotional cost on top of the tiredness. If that network runs louder in you by default, you spend more of your day in the exact mental state research links to lower mood. Nobody asked you whether you wanted that. Here's a number that should bother you. Working memory holds about 4 to 7 things at once. That's the whole budget. Where is yours actually going right now? There's a name for what this costs you in the moment, not just at night. It's called cognitive load, mapped out by educational psychologist John Sweller in 1988. A work meeting takes up part of that budget. Small talk takes another slice. What's left goes to your background scanning, the shift in someone's tone, the pause that ran a beat too long. For most people, that background channel stays nearly empty. Yours runs close to capacity by default, before the actual conversation even starts. Psychologists have a term for holding two demanding streams active at once: dual task cost. It shows up as slower reaction time, faster mental fatigue, and quicker depletion of that same glucose we just talked about. So, Honestly, how many conversations are you actually running right now, in this exact moment? Probably not one. A dinner with 6 people isn't one conversation for you. It's 6, plus a model of the room's mood updating the whole time. There's a chemical side to this too, and it explains why the tiredness doesn't feel like ordinary tiredness. It sits tighter. Sleep alone doesn't shake it loose as easily. Your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, releases cortisol whenever your brain flags something worth monitoring. It doesn't wait for something actually dangerous. A tense pause in a meeting or an unreadable look on someone's face can trigger the same chemical response as an actual threat, and so can a text that's gone unanswered too long. Neuroendocrinologist Bruce McEwen called the long-term wear from this the allostatic load, the cumulative cost of a stress system that keeps firing for things that were never actual emergencies. If your salience network flags more of the day as worth reacting to, your HPA axis fires more often than most people's. Not more intensely in any single moment, just more often, all day, every day. A threat detection system firing on a bigger data stream than most people's is not the same thing as clinical anxiety. It's a system doing its job correctly. Cortisol at low, constant levels all day still costs you by evening. Sleep comes slower. Your body feels tired while your mind keeps moving. The specific, wired kind of exhaustion you probably already know by feel, even if nobody explained why it happens. Your brain already spends 20% of your energy at rest. Its default mode network never fully clocks out. Its stress axis fires on data, not just danger. Nothing here is broken. All of it is tuned to run more often than most people's. Worth asking why this setting exists at all, rather than just chalking it up to bad luck. A threat detection system that fires often was calibrated to fire that often. Calibration means something, somewhere, set the dial, and that's a bigger question than why you're tired. The feature costing you energy right now didn't come from nowhere. Something set it this wide, and it probably wasn't your choice. We open that file completely in an upcoming episode. For now, what matters is this. The cost is a maintenance fee, not a malfunction, on a system built to catch what everyone else's system was never asked to catch. Before I list these, try to guess how many of the next 5 you'll recognize. Most people who watch this channel get all 5. That's not a coincidence. 1. A party you were genuinely looking forward to still leaves you needing a full day alone afterward. Your brain was running 6 background threads the entire time you were there, whether you enjoyed yourself or not. 2. You make a decision in 10 seconds that took someone else an hour, and you're still more drained by 5 p.m. than they are. Those 10 seconds came after 3 hours of unconscious monitoring nobody else saw. 3. Someone tells you that you're overthinking a text message, a look, a tone of voice. Your brain already processed it in the background long before your conscious mind weighed in, and now it needs somewhere to put that. 4. You need silence after a workday other people call easy. That day cost you from 6 to 8 hours of your default mode network, filing away every microsignal your salience network flagged, on top of the actual job. 5. You crash hard on a day where, on paper, nothing happened. No fight, no deadline. Just 8 hours of ordinary human noise your filter never once let you tune out. All 5 come from the same source. A nervous system running more processes per hour than the one sitting next to you, and never billing you for it out loud. Fragility has nothing to do with it. Ending on "just rest more" would be easy. It's also the same empty advice this channel doesn't give, and it wouldn't even be accurate here. More sleep helps the body. It does very little for a default mode network still running the same volume of background traffic the next morning. The real lever works differently. It gives the default mode network somewhere specific to put what it already collected, so nothing keeps circling with no place to land. People who manage this well tend to do one thing differently. They close the loop on purpose, instead of waiting for the day to eventually force one. There are 5 ways to close it, and each targets a different part of what we just covered. First, a 2-minute brain dump. Psychologist James Pennebaker's research on expressive writing found that putting unfinished thoughts on paper, even briefly, measurably cuts down the intrusive replay that keeps circling afterward. This isn't journaling for insight. You're giving the default mode network a place to file the day's flagged items instead of leaving them circling with nowhere to land. Second, what clinical researcher Thomas Borkovec called constructive worry, a scheduled 10-minute window, same time every day, where you deliberately think through whatever's still unresolved. Sounds backwards. You sit down on purpose and worry, but giving your monitoring system a container it can count on means it stops demanding one at 11 p.m., right when you're trying to sleep. Third, attention restoration. Psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan found that environments with what they called soft fascination, trees overhead, water moving, a stretch of open sky, restore directed attention without demanding anything back from it. A phone screen doesn't count. It's just another stream demanding the same monitoring you're trying to switch off. A plain walk with nothing to track and nothing to flag does the job. Fourth, a shutdown ritual. Organizational psychologist Sabine Sonnentag's research on recovery found that people who mark the end of a demanding stretch with one specific repeated action detach faster and more completely than people who simply stop. Closing a laptop and saying a phrase out loud works. So does a particular route to the door. The action itself barely matters. What matters is that it's the same one every time, so your brain learns to read it as a signal, not just another event. Fifth, and the fastest one, a physiological sigh. 2 short inhales through the nose, 1 long exhale through the mouth. Stanford researchers measured it lowering physiological arousal faster than slow breathing or meditation in the same short window. It works because it's mechanical. You don't have to outthink a nervous system that's already running ahead of you. You just give it a physical off-ramp. None of these 5 turn a wide filter into a narrow one. You wouldn't actually want that trait anyway. What they give the system is a stopping point, so it doesn't have to run flat out until it stops itself. Ever think the exhaustion means something's wrong with you? It's the receipt for work your brain was already doing, whether anyone else in the room knew about it or not. 20% of your energy, spent by a brain that never fully clocks out, on a stress axis treating data like danger, is the price of seeing what everyone else in the room missed. One question for the comments. What's the specific thing you need to do after an ordinary day just to feel like yourself again? Not the big, obvious stuff, the small, particular ritual. I read every response. See what others miss.